Hey guys, my name is Shai, and this is a timeless pick a deck tarot and oracle card reading. So the decks I have for you here, you have the Starseed Oracle. That'll be deck number 1. Deck number 2 is the Divine Animals Oracle. And deck number 3 is the Starchliid Tarot. I'm going to use these decks to just kind of divide up the energy here and anchor the readings, and there's going to be all kinds of more stuff added in. So I'll give you a minute to look at these, and then the timestamps are in the description box, so I will see you in your reading. Okay, for those of you who chose the Starchliid Oracle, this is going to be your reading. I'm going to move these out of the way. And I don't know if you could hear during the silence there, my neighbor started up his great big truck, and it was quite loud. And that sound of the ignition, right? That sound of the key turning. Well, actually, I don't know if you turned the key in the ignition in a lot of new vehicles, right? You don't even turn the key, but that sound of the key turning, right? The sound of the key turning and then the ignition starting up in a big old truck. So the first word here for you is ignition, right? And the first reading here, you're number 1, and this is totally a timeless reading, right? But I'm filming this in January of 2026. 2026 is a year number 1, right? If you add 6 and 2 and 2, you get 10, which is 1. So this is it. This is it. This is the ignition. And I mean, this could be a re-ignition for a lot of you. Although what I will say is that a lot of people, like a lot of new people, are going to be watching this video. Of course, there's going to be, my usual audience, like my core loyal audience who's stuck with me for so long. But this is also going to be seen by new people. So for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, hello and welcome. And especially if you are brand new to your spiritual awakening, right? If you're just getting into, maybe you're just starting to watch tarot readings out of curiosity, maybe you're just kind of exploring your spirituality, maybe you just heard the word starseed for the first time, maybe this is all brand new to you, right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are not too late. This is still the beginning of the show, okay? But also, for those of you who might be watching this where, this is all kind of old hat to you, you're very familiar with this type of energy, you're very familiar with this type of space, there could still be something here for you because it's about this reignition, right? It's not like that was the first time my neighbor started up his truck, right? How many times do you start your car? How many times do you get up in the morning? How many times do you begin? How many times do you begin again? So either way this is hitting for you, there's definitely an energy here of, wow, all of these cards got all mixed up. That's okay. This deck, it doesn't matter if these are coming out reversed or what. That's actually really interesting. That's part of this. It doesn't matter if this is your first time or your 1,000,000th time. It doesn't matter if this is your first life or your 1,000,000,000th life, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's like something equalizing the playing field here. And very interesting, we have lifting the veil, right? Lifting the veil, questioning everything. Anything unaligned must go. And this I'm sorry energy, this is kind of Libra energy, justice energy, defenselessness, righting past wrongs, and uprooting. This can sometimes point to like, you know, like resolving a conflict with another person, but I'm not really, that might be relevant for you, right? But I'm not really feeling that for the most part here. The way I'm feeling this energy is, you know, I had a fortune cookie the other day that said something about the real key to greatness is forgetting. Your ability to forget, right? Your ability to forget. Your ability to forget. How important is that? What if being able to forget is absolutely crucial for this next level of your experience, right? What do you need to forget? What do you need to actually forget? And whether or not you actually forget it, right? Is kind of besides the point, but there can be this energy of forgetting without actually forgetting. Like, what if something just becomes so unimportant to you that you just don't think about it anymore? What if it just becomes so small potatoes to you that you just, it just fails to get that much of an emotional reaction out of you? And there is a little side message here for some people. This could be related to grief. So I don't want to dig too deeply into that. But what I will just say, if you have been going through a period of grieving, you know, the loss of a loved one, or even grieving in a more kind of general sense, it is okay to get to that point where you kind of forget about it a little bit, right? I know, you know, for me, I had a year where 1 year it was the anniversary of my cat's transition, my cat Bear, who I loved so much. And a few years had gone by, and on the anniversary of his death day, it like slipped my mind. I forgot about it, right? And I know there can be a temptation to feel kind of bad about that, to kind of feel like you should carry that grief and rehearse those anniversaries, right? And really carry that with you. But time is supposed to be able to do its job, right? You need to allow time to do its job. And if you have a moment like that where you realize you forgot an anniversary, or you forgot to feel bad about something, or you forgot to bring up the sorrow, forgot to bring up the grief, really see that for the healing moment that it is, right? And allow that to be okay. And this can also be something a lot smaller, like imagine you're in a social situation and you do something embarrassing, or you say something kind of stupid, or you say something you wish you could take back. Or, you know, maybe you have to ask an embarrassing question, like in the classroom. Maybe, you know, you're in school, you're in university, or you're in like a workplace training thing, or maybe a friend is just teaching you something and you just don't get it and you have to ask. And it can be really embarrassing to have to ask again, or to say, I'm really sorry. Can you explain that one more time? Because I just didn't get it the first time. Can you explain that again? And those type of things, right? They can feel really, like, that can feel like such a big deal, right? And you can really allow that to bog down your life, and you can really kind of rehearse the embarrassment and the cringiness and the awkwardness of it. Or what if you just kind of like, you know what, it doesn't really matter, and I'm not even really going to pay attention to that much. I'm just going to ask the awkward question. I'm just going to allow that awkward comment I said to just let it pass by. I'm just going to really not put a lot of weight into that. I'm just going to kind of let it go and forget about it and let it slide and just continue on, right? That is kind of an underlying energy here. And then it's interesting though, because lifting the veil, anything unaligned must go. It is because you want to be like, what are you aligning to, right? What are you aligning to? You want to be aligning to your own future. Oh, so this Lover's card, I don't know if that was on the camera. It had hopped out right at the beginning, just popped off the top of the deck. This Lover's energy. This is okay. So absolutely, this could be playing out with you and another, right? It could be playing out in a romantic or sexual relationship. And that is kind of a good example here. And I will talk about it using that as an example, but I want to focus more about how you're actually coming into this place where you are establishing a healthier relationship with your entire reality, like with your entire external reality. And this is what we learn from our own romantic relationships. I mean, it could be friendships, it could be family relationships as well, but romantic relationships are a good example because, I mean, could you imagine being in a long-term committed relationship with someone? Like, let me use the example of a marriage because that makes this very clear, right? Imagine you're married to someone. Well, if you're in a healthy marriage, right? A happy, healthy, loving, supportive marriage that is going to go the distance, right? That means you have to be completely comfortable with that person. And I mean like completely comfortable. And of course, when you're newly married, you know, you might not be there immediately, right? This is a process that takes years to settle into. But if you've been married 10 years, 20 years, right, you're going to be completely comfortable with that person. And part of the beauty of being like an old married couple is that it doesn't matter what kind of stupid thing you said. It doesn't matter how you embarrassed yourself. It doesn't matter what awkward thing happened during sex. It doesn't matter, like, if you're in some weird situation, like maybe you're traveling or something and you have to use the bathroom. Well, your partner is also in the bathroom, right? Like, it doesn't matter, like, none of it matters. It doesn't matter how neurotic you are. It doesn't matter like what your PTSD about, right? It doesn't matter like if you get triggered about something stupid, like in like a real like really as a healthy old married couple, none of that shit matters. And yes, it might sometimes come up and it might like be like annoying for a minute, right? You know, if you're in a healthy, long-term, happy marriage, you're still going to annoy each other, right? That's normal. It's not like you never annoy each other. It's not like you ever get aggravated with each other, but it's this feeling of like all those little things. It's like you never worry about asking a stupid question. You never worry about being too much. You never worry about saying like, look, I'm just tired. I just have to go to sleep, right? You never worry about any of those things that you might worry about with other people because you know that it's fine because you are in the container of this relationship, right? You are in this container of this relationship that is just so solid, so supportive, so loving, and so also like forgiving of all of like the quirks and the awkwardness and the embarrassment and, you know, the bad smells and like the stupid things that happen in life, right? It just doesn't matter, right? So imagine that type of dynamic. Imagine your ideal old married couple, like your relationship goals old married couple, right? And just imagine having that kind of relationship with the world, like with all of humanity, with your entire external reality. Imagine feeling that level of comfort wherever you go. And this has been really hitting home for me because I think that is so much like a huge key to success that nobody's really talking about. And I mean, that is the key to success in relationships and in friendships and with your family and absolutely in your career, absolutely with like the greater world and even like with, even with like social media, if you're wanting to build a following, right? There's this thing about, or like even like in politics, even if you wanted to like get into politics, I mean, that would be a bigger conversation about how to bring that energy into politics. But if you could somehow pull that off, that would be really incredible, right? Being that level of comfortable with strangers that you meet on the street, with people you've been acquainted with for years, right? Just being totally comfortable and just bringing that energy of the old married couple wherever you go with you, right? And being in relationship with the world with that level of comfort. And of course, how do you get to that point? Well, that is what you are figuring out, right? That is what you are doing. You almost nobody has achieved this in life. I mean, there are maybe a few examples, right? But this is quite rare to get to this level of comfort with your relationship with the external reality. But that is what you were doing here. And so keep cultivating that, keep feeling into that. And what I will say is that you might have to be the one to bring this to the table, right? You have to bring this energy to the table. Of course, it's really nice and very supportive and very helpful when you meet other people. Like, because when you're in a relationship, right? When it's a one-on-one relationship, both people have to kind of get on this page, right? Both people have to be in this. Like, you can't be that happy old married couple unless both people are completely like in sync with this this energy, right? Of course, it becomes a lot more difficult when you're talking about your relationship with the entire external reality, because you're going to be encountering like every single different type of energy, every single different type of person, and everybody's going to be in a completely different space. So when you're dealing with everybody, when you're dealing with all of reality, and you're encountering all of these different energies, well, that means that you kind of have to bring this to the table. And that means even when other people can't get on your level, even when other people are really uncomfortable, really awkward, really angry, really mean, really just not interested, right? You can still bring that energy to the table, and you can still like be comfortable like with whatever they're doing, because you know it just doesn't have to be a big deal. You can just go, okay, well, you do you, and you do whatever you're doing, right? And it doesn't have to really have any lasting impact on your experience, because you're just moving through this comfortable relationship with the external reality. So that was a little bit of a shorter message than I was maybe expecting, but I think I'm going to leave it at that, because I feel like that was pretty concise, and like that was the message. And it would be really cool if I can keep these messages a little more succinct, because I stopped doing these like pick a card or pick a deck readings because I kept allowing them to like run like an hour and a half long, and they just that like takes so much out of me. If I do an hour and a half long pick a card reading, that's like all I can do in the day. So if I can keep these a little bit shorter, that would mean I could do more of them. So I'm gonna try practicing that. So yeah, so I'm gonna leave you guys there. You're of course welcome to listen to the rest of the messages if you feel drawn in that direction. So there was just an interesting there's just an interesting feeling that just came up here. An interesting feeling. This like little bit of a bubble. This little bit of a bubble. I'm going to let that be though, because just with a little bit of a reminder that when you're socializing and you trip over your own tongue, your brain like bugs out, you suddenly, you know, enter that moment of an awkward silence, that's okay, right? That's okay. Other people don't care about that as much as you might think. So you can just put yourself back on track and continue on, and everybody will basically just forget about it. So sending you guys so much love and light, and I will see you in the next reading. Bye. Okay. For those of you who chose the Divine Animals Oracle, this is your reading. I don't know, something about your guys' energies just made me start giggling. Well, that's quite fun. That is quite fun. Oh, and you know what? I was reading something today. There was actually a headline in the New York Times about like really the importance of laughter. And it was funny because the article was like so serious. It was so serious about how we all need to laugh more. I found that kind of ironic, right? And I was just thinking, and it was giving all of this advice on all of like different strategies you can use to create more laughter in your life. And I found the whole thing kind of funny. And what I was thinking was, well, what brings the most laughter to my life? What brings me the most smiles, the most levity, the most laughter, and the most joy? That is easy to answer, right? That is my animals. My animals. I mean, my dog is no longer in the physical with me, but he still makes me laugh. And I have my 2 cats who are physically here with me. And like, I don't know what I would do without them, because I feel like the amount of laughter I have would be just like a fraction, right? A fraction. They make me smile, they make me laugh, they make me warm and fuzzy all of the time, all day, and it is just the greatest. So I don't know. I don't know, guys. If you don't have pets, I mean, I would never want to suggest to someone to get a pet if you aren't like fully ready and willing to commit to that, right? Because if you're not really able to fully invest in the care of that animal, then please don't get an animal, right? But I don't know, maybe you can find other ways to spend time with animals because they really do make you laugh. Oh my God. The dog card. Yes. Oh, guys, my spirit pup, right? My spirit pup who is with me in spirit. He is so much here. And guys, if you have an animal companion who has passed on, right? Just know that they have not abandoned you. They are so much with you. They are right there with you in spirit. And a little reminder, I think, that the way to communicate with your passed on loved ones, and I mean, like, this very specifically here, your passed on beloved animals, right? You don't connect with them through grief. In fact, you connect with them through joy. Through joy, especially if this is a dog. I mean, the same thing can apply to any animal that you might have, right? Any animal that you might have, but especially dogs, okay? Especially dogs. Dogs, because, you know, when dogs are in their natural state, as long as everything is well in their life, then they are just the happiest, most full of joy, just little buggers that have ever been, right? So if you have a dog that you want to communicate with, like a dog who has passed on, right? You got to get up on their level. You have to match frequencies with that dog, with that dog's spirit. And that means you have to get yourself into the happiest, most joyful, most free-feeling, loving, and playful frequency that you can. And so that can mean letting go of the grief, right? That can mean letting go of the grief. Because if you've been trying to connect with a passed on animal and you're grieving, that's going to be a lot harder. I mean, that can still be possible, right? That dog can still come through for you, but it's going to be harder for them to do that because they have to cut through all of that cloud of grief. But if you can go outside and look up at the sun and run through a field, right? And spin around and do cartwheels if you can do a cartwheel, right? And just feel so alive and full of joy and so free, that is when you will catch a little bit. That's when you can catch a communication from a dog. And I want to share with you a story of how I mean, I have my dog coming through for me all like quite often, right, in my dreams, and I catch little glimpses of him. But there was one day that was just so funny. I was just standing around. You know, I was listening to a YouTube video, like a tarot reading in my back pocket. Like I had my phone in my back pocket and I was just like standing around in my house, putzing around. And suddenly I just felt like, why am I inside? I want to go outside, right? I want to go outside. And I just kind of went outside and I walked off into the field next to where I was living. And I was just looking up at the sun and I was like sniffing the air, right? And I was just walking around like aimlessly. And I just looked up at the sun and I just felt so full of love that I said, I love you, I love you, I love you. And that's what I always used to say to my dog, right? Me and my dog, we always said, I love you 3 times. It was always 3 times because I could hear him talking to me, right? He always says, I love you, I love you, I love you 3 times. And he taught me to say that. So when I say I love you to my dog, I say it 3 times. So that's what I did out in the sunshine. I looked up at the sun and said, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then from the tarot reading that was playing in my back pocket, that I had stopped listening to, I then heard the reader say, oh, we have a dog coming through here. And he's saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I was like, oh my God, that's my Waffles. That's the name of my dog, right? That's my Waffles. And I was like, this is what a beautiful synchronistic moment, right? And I could feel my dog Waffles was there with me. And then this is the real funny part, okay? I looked down at my feet. And I'm in the middle of the desert, okay? The middle of the desert. And there are 3 milk bones, like those little dog bones. There were 3 little dog bones on the ground, right exactly at my feet, exactly where I had stopped and looked up at the sun and said, I love you 3 times. I am not even remotely kidding. And it was just such a beautiful moment of connecting with my dog. And it was such a good example of how it is feeling that love and joy and exuberance and spontaneity and like allowing yourself to literally behave like a dog and feel the way dogs feel. And remember that your dog wants you to feel your best at any moment, right? Your dog doesn't want you to be sad. Your dog wants you to feel pure, euphoric joy, right? So that is, I know this, apparently this reading is about people who have had passed on, not necessarily only dogs, right? For any passed on loved ones, this message is basically the same, but literally the dog card came out. So for all of us with dogs who are in spirit, they are here with us and they are here in force. Okay, and I just had to pause and pick up the card that fell on the floor. Is this Eight of Arrows, Struggle? So this would be Eight of Swords. And the fact that this hit the floor, it really means that like this is about letting go of the struggle. And the Eight of Swords is about freeing yourself from those limitations, right? Those self-imposed limitations. So really somebody here is learning to let go of the grief and learning that letting go of the grief doesn't mean letting go of the connection, right? As you let go of the grief, as you allow time to release the grief, right? Time will take the grief from you as long as you are allowing time to do its job. And then you will find that you can be even more connected without the grief, right? You can be more connected without the grief. You've really been on a journey to the subterranean bottom of your heart. Like you've been going, like excavating out the bottom of your heart, going to the, it's subterranean is the only way I can say it. The subterranean excavation to see what lies in the caves and caverns and dark spaces in the center of your heart. Queen of Vessels with Salmon. This is so beautiful. This is where this is all leading you, this whole journey, this whole experience. It's like this return, right? Because salmon, they return and they return with love. And I don't know if anyone, like, I don't know how many other people experience this, but like I was a vegetarian and a vegan for a very long time. And the first animal that I ate after about 18 years was salmon. And what really surprised me about that was that I could feel the energy of the salmon as I like consumed its flesh, right? As like disturbing as that seemed to me. And I really felt like the salmon wanted to nourish me. Like it really, and so I love to eat salmon. And every time I eat salmon now, I'm so much aware how salmon wants to nourish us. It wants to nourish us. And that is like whoever made this deck understands this because they picked salmon as this Queen of Cups, wanting to nourish, this ability to nourish, right? This ability to nourish and having it be such a beautiful thing. This ability to nourish and having it be such a beautiful thing. So I think what you're experiencing here is you're going to have this return. I would say it's like a return of nourishment. And I mean, at first, you might be the one being nourished, right? Because we all need to be nourished, and you cannot nourish others unless you yourself have first been nourished, right? Just the whole thing about the oxygen mask, put yours on first. But really, this is taking you to a place where you are going to be unlocking levels of devotion, love, loyalty, steadfastness, and nourishment that you are going to be able to give to yourself and you're going to be able to give to others. It's like you receive it, you get, well, what order does this go in, right? Do you give it to yourself first or do you receive it from others first? That narrative could play out in different ways, right? It doesn't have to be in any one particular sequence. Everybody is crafting their own narrative here. But the three stages of this that happen in no particular order are you nourish yourself, you receive nourishment from others, and then you return nourishment to others. You become able to give new like frequencies of nourishment to others. And really there's an emphasis here because of the dog and because of the salmon of loyalty, like choosing loyalty. And you know, this is a little bit this is a little bit of a topic. I feel like in like 99% of spiritual content that I have personally encountered, it's always talking about setting boundaries and cutting cords and not self-sacrificing and putting your oxygen mask on first. And let me be exquisitely clear, all of that is super incredibly important, right? Super incredibly important. However, I feel like I almost never hear people talk about loyalty, right? Why does almost no one talk about loyalty? And I mean, I can answer my own question. I would say it's because so many people who are walking their spiritual path, they have depleted themselves in the past, right? This might be you. You've depleted yourself by perhaps being loyal to the wrong people, perhaps giving your energy away to the wrong people, right? You having given your energy away, given your power away to people who are just using you, who are just sucking your energy dry, right? You've perhaps had boundaries that were too fluid, too soft, and people took advantage of you. So you had, because of that, because of your history, you had to learn the lessons of self-sovereignty and independence and taking your energy back and cutting cords and setting firm boundaries and telling other people to go kick rocks, right? You had to learn that. You had to learn that. It was important. And it's been so important for so many people to learn that. And so really, I guess that is why that has been such a huge part, so emphasized in like the spiritual talk, right? However, like, I think there's room here for many of us. When you feel ready, when you feel like, yeah, I'm good on boundaries. Yeah, I'm good on how I maintain my own energy. Yeah, I'm good at not allowing people to take advantage of me. Like, yeah, I'm solid on this now. Like, I've learned that. I've figured it out, and now I am solid and sovereign and independent, and my boundaries are great, and I'm just like, I'm good to go. I don't really feel like I'm going to be taken advantage of, and I don't really feel like I'm going to give my power away, and I know who's good for me and who's not good for me, right? Once you're in that space, now you can actually start thinking about devotion and loyalty in a new way, right? And I feel like there's going to be an opportunity for you to choose loyalty and devotion. And it could be romantic. Definitely for some it will be, especially if you've like really kind of been through the ringer in terms of your romantic relationships. But this is so much beyond just romantic relationships. This could be you choosing loyalty to a friend, right? Choosing to be really loyal to a friend, even if that friend might sometimes be draining your energy a little bit, right? Sometimes, right? Sometimes you might have a friend who there's just maybe something they're going through and they just kind of draining your energy a little bit. But you can get to a point where you're like, okay, it's okay. I can actually handle this. I can actually manage this, and this will not harm me. I can actually handle this and it will not harm me, right? And you can choose loyalty to a person without having to cut the cords, without having to set too firm of boundaries with them. Of course, you're still managing your boundaries, right? All of this depends on the fact that you know how to manage your boundaries and you know how to manage your own energy. But you might find new opportunities to choose loyalty to someone where perhaps in the past you weren't able to choose loyalty to that type of person, but maybe now you can choose loyalty to them, and you're going to just choose loyalty because maybe this is the time in your life where you're going to see where that can take you. What happens if you cultivate loyalty? What kind of experience could that bring for you, right? And it can even be loyalty. This is a tricky one, but like loyalty to a job, which I would be extremely cautious of because, I mean, how many workplaces are actually worthy of your loyalty, right? I would be the first one to tell you, like, quit your job, find somewhere better because it's just a job, right? But in a very few select cases, you might choose loyalty. Like perhaps you get a job. I mean, perhaps it's like a nonprofit group and they can't pay you enough, but you're going to choose loyalty to that nonprofit because you believe so strongly in the work that they do. So there would have to be something very special about that workplace where you go, wow, this is worth it. I'm going to choose loyalty to this group, even despite the problems, right? Or it could be maybe a startup and you're going to choose loyalty to this group because you think, wow, well, like this, if I stick with this for 5 years, like who knows where this could take me and who knows what I could build with this group. It could be, if you're a musician, you might choose loyalty to a band. And really, this could be even choosing loyalty to your own projects. Like if you're going to write a book, you have to be loyal to your writing, right? You have to be loyal to your writing. You have to be loyal to yourself. And it could even be choosing loyalty, like maybe you even struggled with like social connections, right? Like maybe you think, okay, I know it would be good for me if I socialized more, but I don't really have any friends. Well, maybe you do something like you join some type of group. It could be like, some kind of, it could even be a support group, right? It could be like AA. It could be like a D&D table that you go to every week. Something that you can do regularly, like every week, right? Every week, maybe once a month or something like that. Whatever schedule's fitting you, but you could choose, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to see this through. I'm going to commit to this and I'm going to be loyal to this literally because I choose to be loyal. And you understand that this is a choice you are making, right? You're not getting sucked into it. They're not taking advantage of you. You can bestow your loyalty. And this does mean that, like, if shit goes sideways or these people start sucking you dry, or if you think, wow, this wasn't the right choice, I want to reassess what I have chosen here, you can still take your loyalty back, right? You can still go, okay, well, this wasn't really the right thing to be loyal to. And that's okay. Don't see that as a failure. That's just literally part of life, right? That is just literally part of life. And that is okay too. So, yeah, like loyalty as an experience that we cultivate, I think is coming back around for all of us who are really like settled and clear in our own energy. So that's pretty interesting. And I'm kind of happy to see that. And this is, of course, the lesson that our most beloved dogs teach us, right? Because they are the ones who know all about loyalty more than we ever could, I think. So I'm going to leave you guys there, sending you so much love and light, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. All right, for those of you who chose the Starchild Tarot, my favorite deck, the first deck I ever bought, and it's still my favorite. So this will be your reading. Oh my God, we got the sun on the bottom. I am taking that one. I will take it, baby. Yes. Oh, do you feel that glow? Do you feel that glow within? So you guys are bright fucking lights, okay? You guys are bright fucking lights. Can you hear the humming? That is the choir of the archangels. Oh, look at all these cards that fall out here. Oh, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. The archangels, I hear them. They hum like that in choirs. Too many. Okay. So this is like way too many cards. I would normally never do this, but we're going to loosely look at all of these cards and see what this adds up to. I'm going to actually really zoom out, like really iris my crown and my third eye wide open and just absorb this on a very broad level. I'm not even going to read you out what these cards are. Hopefully you can see them. Something about a shockwave. Dancing. Shockwave dancing. under the starlight, under the new moon, because the moon has been casting shadows. So the new moon is a place for you to go to refresh yourself, and under the light of the new moon, which of course there is no light during the new moon other than the light of the stars, that is when, when there was no sunlight and no moonlight, under the light of the stars and the light of the new moon, that is when your light can shine the brightest, right? That is when your light can shine the brightest. Transference. Transference of the dawn. The transference of the dawn. What if the light rises inside of you? What if the dawn, what if the sunrise is inside of you? Have you ever seen the light that shines from within your own self? Have you ever felt the light shine from inside of you? And this doesn't have to feel like light. Light, as we speak of it, is an easy way of putting a word and a concept and a symbol to something beyond any conceivable visual spectrum. You might consider other ways of thinking, other words, other symbols, other metaphors, besides just light. You might think of sound, right? The voice, the sound, the speaker. You might think of pure perception, pure awareness. What radiates from you when you open your mind? The mind is not simply a receiver. Perception is not simply about perceiving. As you perceive, you are equally transmitting. You could call it energy. You could call it frequency. You could call it vibration. It is a pulse. What was there before there was light? What was there before there was sound? What was there before there was time? What was there before the stopper? The stopper. They're showing me a cork, like a stopper, like a cork. What was there before anything could be stoppered, before anything could be stopped? Breadth. What was there before there was space? They're repeating. They're repeating. What was there before there was time? What was there before there was time? Moonchild. Moonchild. There's an underlying energy here of having learned lessons of endurance. Having learned lessons of endurance. What if certain experiences are not punishments? What if they are not things that have gone wrong? What if they are not bugs or glitches? What if they are not wounds? What if they are simply part of the path? What if they are simply part of the experience? What if certain things are simply there to be endured? What if they are simply there to be endured? Because the cultivation of endurance is part of what we need in order to be whole. This is all about discovering wholeness. Discovering wholeness all the way from the beginning to the end, the alpha to the omega. And realizing that those words and ideas are still rooted in our linear mind. They're showing me not a line, but a circle. Not a circle, but a sphere. Not a sphere, but a 13th dimensional object. Not a multidimensional object, but the absence of objectivity, of objects. Instead of light and dark, what if we think about beingness and non-beingness? So being and non-being, is and isn't. Being and non-being, is and isn't. We use light as a way of expressing being, and we use the dark as a way of expressing non-being. And between them all is zero, the 0 point field. Zero. Think about being and non-being, is and isn't. Think about positive and negative integers. What is the difference between +1 and -1? Positive 1 and -1. Positive and negative numbers, positive and negative integers. What is the difference between +1 and -1? What is the meaning? What is the mathematical meaning of 0? What is the mathematical meaning of 0? How do you translate that into English? What is the difference between being and non-being? What is the difference between is and isn't? And what lies at the 0 point? Can you imagine beyond or before 0? The purpose of this message is to allow your consciousness to move around and through these ideas, and to allow your consciousness to move these ideas through and around. The point is not to come to a well-articulated conclusion or a well-articulated statement. The point is to breathe with these concepts, to allow these concepts to exist as points of data or as questions or as food for thought inside of your human mind, and to allow them to instruct you as you move through your life and your journey, because it is being aware of the things you cannot, it is important to be aware of questions that you cannot answer. It is important to have questions that you cannot answer. It is important to have concepts, to be aware of concepts that you cannot fully understand. It is important to receive messages that you cannot translate. It is important to be faced with the unknown. Because if you were to exist with no unanswerable questions, if you were to exist with only things that you could explain and understand with certainty, what kind of existence would that be? Growth and wholeness comes from playing with new things, from encountering new things, from trying new things, from seeing new things. And that means things that you do not understand, questions that you cannot answer. If you have been through a cycle where you have been drawing conclusions and coming into coherence and valuing congruence and clarity, ask yourself if perhaps now might be the time to open back up to the confusion, but not the confusion of the mud and the murk and the fog, but the confusion of a dazzling landscape that you have not yet learned to recognize, or have not yet learned to process or to understand. That is you feel the difference between the confusion of the fog and the murk and the confusion of the dazzling new world. So in the past, if you have walked through the confusion of the fog and the murk, that might have taught you to avoid confusion and to value clarity and certainty above and beyond confusion. But there is a different type of confusion that you will need to learn to move into, and to recognize that it is a different, the confusion is coming from a different source. It is not coming from illusions, from obfuscation, and from lies and mysteries and smoke and mirrors. This is the confusion of, imagine, you know, that feeling of being a very small child and going to perhaps your very first carnival, or some really fantastically decorated birthday party, or going to Disneyland, or something like that, where you're a very small child and you walk into this world and there's just bright lights everywhere, and there's amazing, beautiful, fantastic things, and everywhere you look there is something interesting and amazing and fascinating, and you just want to go and run and see and feel and experience it all. But you don't understand any of it. You don't understand any of it. But all you know is that it is dazzling and exciting and stimulating and euphoric. And it is so incredibly beautiful and wonderful that you just, all you know is that you want to throw yourself into it. And yet you are completely confused. You don't understand anything about any of it. That is the feeling here. You want to walk into that world that is bright and dazzling and absolutely bewildering and confusing. But do not let the confusion and fear of the fog and the murk throw you off, right? Because the confusion of the bright and the dazzling world, full of things exciting and stimulating and wonderful, that is what is in front of you. So take that step forward and allow yourself to dive into the confusion, and know that this is the beginning of a new cycle where one day you will be master of this world too. You will understand all that you are able to understand about this new place. And then you will move on to yet another dazzling, brave new world. So it is time to jump into the light. And remember, the light is just this word and this concept and this symbol that we use to represent so much more, right? So much more. So much more. I'm going to leave you guys there, sending you so much love and light, and I will talk to you later.